Shuyan had wanted to sleep with Lin Chuanjin the first time he met him, and the key point is, he actually succeeded. That day was Lin Xian's 18th birthday. The young master was in a good mood and invited the whole class to his home for a celebration, offering free food, drinks, and transportation, with no gifts required. Among the invited was Su Yan, who Lin Xian had unilaterally decided was his boyfriend, but Su Yan only saw him as a long-term meal ticket and casual partner. Su Yan, although just a bet, was the most eye-catching person in the school. Part of it was due to his appearance: thin lips, a high-nosed bridge, and a pair of peach blossom eyes filled with seductive charm. He was tall and slender, with a thin waist and long legs. The other part was his promiscuous history, accepting anyone, as long as they paid. He never clung to anyone afterward. This kind of person made the newly transferred Lin Xian, the young master of the Lin family, fall in love at first sight in his second year of high school. Even though he knew about Su Yan's spotted past, he couldn't resist his affection. Facing yet another wealthy pursuer, Su Yan didn't play coy. He took Lin Xian to a hotel on the day he accepted his confession. Afterward, he found 2,000 yuan added to his account. With the help of the butler, they managed to get the unconscious, drunken Lin Xian back to his room. By the time they were done, it was already past 10, making it difficult to catch a ride home. The butler noticed this and led Su Yan to another room on the second floor, offering him a place to stay for the night, with plans to send him home the next day. Su Yan didn't decline, knowing that spending a night in such a centrally located villa was a big win. In the early hours, Su Yan woke from a nightmare and checked his phone. It was nearly 1 a.m. The only sounds outside were the occasional chirping of insects. Feeling a bit thirsty, Su Yan got up and went downstairs to the kitchen, based on his memory from earlier in the day, where he poured himself a glass of water. As he was drinking, he heard the sound of a car pulling up outside. Su Yan looked out through the floor-to-ceiling windows and saw a person stepping out from the back of the car, though the night made it hard to see clearly. The person was tall and imposing, first speaking to the driver before turning to walk toward the villa. Lin Chuanjin had just returned from a business dinner and had drunk quite a bit. Feeling a bit dizzy and knowing his brother was staying at the nearby villa with a butler on duty, he decided to have the driver take him there. But as he opened the door, he noticed a young man standing in the dining room, holding a glass of water and looking at him. Seeing Lin Chuanjin pause, the young man was the first to speak. "Good evening, uncle. I'm Su Yan, a friend of Lin Xian. I came to celebrate his birthday today, but it got too late to go home, so I stayed over." Lin Chuanjin nodded in acknowledgement before changing his shoes and heading upstairs. Su Yan, after setting the water glass down, followed behind him. Upon seeing Lin Chuanjin for the first time, Su Yan knew he was an alpha, and because of the alcohol, there was a slight leak of his pheromones. Su Yan, being a bet, could smell it, a scent of sandalwood, but it didn't affect him. Su Yan followed Lin Chuanjin up to the third floor, right to the door of his room, showing no intention of leaving. Just as Lin Chuanjin was about to open the door, he paused and turned around to ask, "Why are you following me?" Su Yan didn't answer but instead placed a hand over Lin Chuanjin's, guiding his hand to open the door. "I saw that uncle was drunk and was worried something might happen to you. I wanted to make sure you got to your room safely." Su Yan's words were. When Su Yan first met Lin Chuanjin, he immediately wanted to sleep with him, and the key thing was, he succeeded. It was Lin Xian's 18th birthday. The young master was in high spirits and invited the entire class to his house to celebrate, offering free food, drinks, and transportation, with no gifts required. Among the guests was Su Yan, who Lin Xian had unilaterally decided was his boyfriend, though Su Yan only saw him as a long-term meal ticket and casual partner. Su Yan, although just a beta, was the most eye-catching person in school. His striking appearance featured thin lips, a high-nosed bridge, and seductive peach blossom eyes. Tall and slender, with a narrow waist and long legs, Su Yan was known not just for his looks but also for his promiscuity, accepting anyone who came to him as long as they paid, and parting ways without any drama. Lin Xian, the newly transferred second-year student and young master of the Lin family, fell in love at first sight despite knowing Su Yan's questionable history. However, he couldn't resist his feelings. Su Yin, facing yet another wealthy suitor, didn't play coy. He accepted Lin Zian's confession and took him to a hotel that very day. Afterward, Su Yan's account had an additional 2,000 yuan. Later, with the help of the butler, they supported a passed-out Lin Zian back to his room. By the time everything was settled, it was already past 10, and transportation was hard to come by. The butler, realizing this, led Su Yin to another room on the second floor and offered him a place to stay for the night, which Su Yin accepted without hesitation, knowing it was a prime opportunity to spend a night in a central city villa. In the early morning, Su Yin was awakened by a nightmare and checked his phone, which showed it was nearly 1 a.m. The only sound outside was the chirping of insects. Feeling thirsty, Su Yin got up and, recalling his memory from earlier, went downstairs to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water. As he was drinking, he heard the sound of a car outside. He looked out the floor-to-ceiling window but couldn't make out the model or color of the car in the night. A tall, imposing figure emerged from the back seat of the car. Though his face was obscured, his presence was undeniable. After exchanging a few words with the driver, the man turned and walked towards the villa. Lin Chuanjin had just attended a social event where he drank heavily, leaving him a bit dizzy. Since his brother's villa was the closest, and with a butler there to assist him, he had his driver bring him over. But as soon as he opened the door, he saw a child he didn't recognize standing in the dining room, holding a glass of water and looking at him. The child, seeing him standing there in a daze, was the first to greet him. "Hello, uncle. My name is Su Yin. I'm a friend of Lin Zian. I came for his birthday party today, but it got too late for me to go home, so I stayed over." Lin Chuanjin nodded to show he understood and then changed his shoes, preparing to go upstairs. As Lin Chuanjin walked away, Su Yin casually placed the glass on the table and followed behind him. At first glance, Su Yin knew that Lin Chuanjin was an alpha. Due to the alcohol, Lin Chuanjin's pheromones leaked slightly, releasing a sandalwood scent, but as a beta, Su Yin wasn't affected. Su Yin followed Lin Chuanjin all the way to the third floor, with no intention of leaving even when they reached the door to his room. Lin Chuanjin paused as he was about to open the door, turning around to ask, "Why are you following me?" Su Yin didn't answer but instead placed a hand over Lin Chuanjin's, guiding his hand to open the door. "I saw that uncle was drunk and was worried something might happen to you. I wanted to make sure you got to your room safely." Su Yan's words were whispered close to Lin Chuanjin's ear, deliberately lowering his voice so that the latter words were barely audible, turning into a soft breath that caressed Lin Chuanjin's face. Lin Chuanjin pushed Su Yin away and, after entering the room, attempted to close the door, but Su Yin slipped through the gap before it could shut completely. "Get out!" Lin Chuanjin had no time for Su Yan's petty tricks and pointed to the door, telling him to leave. Su Yin didn't seem to mind. Instead, he leaned back against the door, closed it, and wrapped his arms around Lin Chuanjin's neck, leaning in to kiss him. After a long moment, they parted, with Lin Chuanjin breathing heavily, staring at Su Yin with an unreadable expression. Su Yin, also catching his breath, seeing Lin Chuanjin still watching him, leaned in again, but this time only lightly brushing his lips against the corner of Lin Chuanjin's mouth. "Do you know what you're doing right now?" When Lin Chuanjin spoke again, his voice was hoarse. "I know. The moment I saw you, I wanted to sleep with you." Before Su Yin could react, he found himself being pinned to the bed by Lin Chuanjin, his hands held above his head. "Uncle, it hurts." Su Yin smiled as he tried to wiggle his hands free, playfully pleading with Lin Chuanjin. Instead of releasing him, Lin Chuanjin removed his tie and quickly bound Su Yan's hands. After biting Su Yan's neck, Lin Chuanjin got up, took off his shirt, and removed Su Yan's pajama pants before pinning him down again. Su Yin was extremely slender, his shoulder blades so prominent they could be felt with a touch. "Uncle, let me help you." Su Yan's bound hands fumbled to undo Lin Chuanjin's belt, even stroking him before letting go. As Lin Chuanjin entered him, Su Yan's first sensation was one of being filled to the point of discomfort. No wonder he had been so drawn to this man at first sight. He was larger than anyone he had been with before. "Slow down, uncle, uncle." Lin Chuanjin's pace quickened, leaving Su Yin struggling to speak coherently, his pleas coming out in broken gasps. After the first round, Su Yin lay flat on the bed, trying to catch his breath, but before he could, he felt himself being flipped over to Uncle? Ah, it hurts. Before he could finish speaking, Lin Chuanjin entered him from behind, one hand gripping his waist while the other reached around to fondle his chest. By the time they were completely finished, the sky was beginning to lighten, and Su Yin had long since passed out from the prolonged exertion. After untying his hands, Lin Chuanjin noticed a distinct bruise on Su Yan's wrist where the tie had been. He rubbed it gently, the pain rousing Su Yin from his sleep. In his drowsy state, Su Yin burrowed into Lin Chuanjin's chest, snuggled for a moment, then drifted back to sleep. When Su Yin woke up again, it was already past 10 a.m. Lin Chuanjin, still groggy from the alcohol, was still asleep. The curtains hadn't been drawn properly the night before, letting a few rays of sunlight into the room. In the sunlight, Su Yin quietly admired Lin Chuanjin's features. His face was sharp, with close-set eyes and deep contours. His nose was straight, lips slightly parted, and his hair a bit tousled, which added to his allure. After struggling to get dressed, Su Yin, supporting his waist, left Lin Chuanjin's room without looking back, seeming a bit like a scoundrel. It took him several minutes to descend from the third floor to the second. Luckily, no one else in the villa was up at this hour, and Lin Zian was still asleep, saving Su Yin a lot of trouble. Back in his room, Su Yin lay on the bed for a while longer before forcing himself to get up and take a shower. While cleaning himself, he realized that Lin Chuanjin hadn't used protection the night before, leaving his seed inside. After cleaning up, Su Yin looked at the mess on the floor and once again felt relieved that he was a beta. Otherwise, he would have to go out and buy medicine. After transferring the money he had earned from yesterday's birthday party, Su Yin looked at the remaining living expenses for the month, 800 yuan. Considering that he could occasionally rely on Lin Zian, it should be enough. As he calculated how to budget this 800 yuan, Su Yan's phone suddenly rang. The caller ID said, "Mom." It wasn't until the second ring that Su Yin pressed the answer button, but he didn't speak. Yin Yin, how have you been recently? The voice on the other end sounded cautious. I'm out of money. What I just transferred to you is all I had. How much money do you think I have? Don't you know where my money comes from? Do you really want me to die? Su Yan's voice was cold, growing louder toward the end, as if he were venting his frustration. No, no, how could Mom bear to let you die? But Yin Yin, please, save Mom, okay? That man's child is sick and asking Mom for money. If I don't give it to him, he'll hit me. Please, save Mom. Mom can't leave that man.